Today, we're out and about in the hills surrounding Reefton, on the South Island's west coast. Since it all began back in 1870, millions of ounces of gold have been won from the reefs of quartz that give Reefton its name. To this day, people are exploring and digging for the next big find. Join me as we follow the treasure hunt into the skies, through the forest, and deep, deep underground. I'm Patrick Phelps. My father was a miner, my grandfather was a miner. In this series, I'm taking you where most Kiwis never get to go.
We're live on all cams.
Inside Aotearoa's working mine sites. So you can meet the miners. Gold-bearing quartz was first discovered here more than 150 years ago. Since then, countless would-be miners have prospected and explored this area, looking for ounces of gold within mountains of rock.
Beauty old boat.
The team from Rua Gold are in pursuit of a mineable resource, with drilling platforms operating deep in the hills, all part of learning more about what can be found in the earth.
So we've been exploring here for about 5 years now. We've been doing large-scale surveys, so geochemical surveying with soil sampling, magnetic surveys. We've done some drilling here and there, but now we're ramping up our efforts.
The goal of an exploration project like Rua Gold's is to prove up the size and depth of a gold deposit, determining whether establishing a new mine will actually be worthwhile. The core samples from the drill holes are the best proof of what lies beneath. But as Jamie mentioned, the team start with a range of cutting-edge mapping and surveying techniques.
They are all fairly low cost, but once we get to this stage, drilling, it's quite high cost. So we really need to be sure that we're in the right place and we have all the knowledge behind us to make educated guesses of where things are going to go.
An operation like this requires teams of scientists and technicians. It's costly and time-consuming and doesn't necessarily lead to establishing a mine. But here, with the drilling phase in full swing, the team believe they are narrowing in on what could be a significant, mineable gold deposit.
All of our work has led towards that, but now it's kind of getting real. And it's pretty exciting. This is my first job out of uni, and to be in a project that could potentially lead towards a mine and be successful, that's really cool, yeah.
Down on the platform, or pad, Jacob and his offsiders were working on the latest drill hole.
So at the moment we're currently drilling down to their ore zone. So this hole's currently going to go to 100 metres. Normally it should take about 4 to 5 days. We should be there.
The ore zone is the area where the gold-bearing rock is located, and the core samples the drill team pulls allow the geologist to understand where that ore zone is, what it looks like, and how much gold it may have. The drill itself is another high-tech piece of kit.
So down the bottom we have a barrel, and our tube runs down to the bottom, and that's what collects the core. And then behind you we have a drill bit that sits on the bottom of it.
Every half metre or so, the rod is pulled up and a core sample is extracted by one of Jacob's offsiders.
So the offsiders will empty the tube, and then we'll load it into the core boxes, and then we'll fly it out, give it to the geologist, and they'll go from there.
These platforms are only temporary, and the team is constantly building new pads as the drilling program progresses from one site to another.
Generally we do a couple holes off each pad, so we could be on a pad for a week or we could be on a pad for a month.
The team work 12-hour days, rotating crews at 10 days on and 4 days off. Due to the remote location, the teams camp out in the bush for the duration of their 10-day swing. It's not for everyone, but it's something Jacob grew up with.
My old man's a driller, yeah, so I grew up around it. He just offered me a job one day and I took it and haven't looked back.
Do you enjoy the work, like working out here remotely?
Yeah, I love it, yep.
While highly effective, drilling isn't cheap. Soil sampling to plot out a map of soil chemistry is one technique used to identify potential drill sites. Naomi and Gabrielle gave me the rundown.
So we have these waypoints on our GPS which show us the line that we need to follow along to get our soils.
Like how many samples can you take on one trip?
Some days we have lucky days where we can go for 30-35 samples, and other days the most we can do is 10 samples.
Each sample's location is logged for mapping, the sample bag labelled accordingly, and then carted back to the lab to be dried out in a Briscoe's toaster oven and analysed. This deepens the knowledge of local geology and informs any future decisions on drill sites. As it turns out, Naomi, a trained geologist, and Gabrielle, an arborist back in Italy, entered this particular picture through very different paths.
I actually started my degree as a marine scientist and then took one geology course for fun. I just really like rocks. It's such a stupid thing, but yeah.
I'm a backpacker. I was trying to find a job and I enjoy to stay in the nature, so I think it's the right job for me.
Soil in hand, it was back to Rua Gold's home base, to a warehouse packed full of core samples. The samples are laid out in order of depth, so geologists like Andy can trace each hole down through the rock layers to the ore.
For this hole, as we get into the ore body, there's generally a couple of metres above it where it's brecciated and broken, and that gives us generally an indication that we're about to hit it. And there's sometimes in this hole there's a few little hanging wall quartz veins, and then we know that the main reef is generally about 2 metres below that.
Part of the reason for drilling so many holes is that there can be sudden changes in the location of the ore due to faults and folds in the rock layers.
It all goes well until you miss the ore body with a drill hole and you don't understand why.
Not far from here, some old-timers lost the ore body they were chasing, only to spend 12 years finding it again. So it pays to know where the faults are.
And as we drill multiple holes, we'll go down and we'll recognise each fold. Sometimes we'll start recognising each fold, and if they're not where we predict they are, we know something's changed.
Even when core samples bear gold, it's not always obvious to the naked eye. Before I left, Jamie was kind enough to show me a box that had a bit of quartz with that special something.
This quartz was cut in half, and then this gold here is what they panned out of it when they crushed it. But we also have some very nice visible gold in this quartz here.
So is that relatively uncommon to find?
Visible gold, not so much, but this amount of it is.
Having seen what everyone was looking for out here, it was time for me to leave the Rua Gold team to their work and head up the road to the town's next big gold mine, deep down in the bowels of the earth. I'm Patrick Phelps, and I'm in Reefton on the west coast, checking out my second site of the day, Federation Mining's Snowy River project. The workings are more than 900 metres vertically below the surface, and we come in from the side via tunnels, or twin declines, that run 3.5 kilometres deep.
Grab yourself a rescue, throw that onto your belt.
After getting kitted up, Chris, a geologist at Snowy River, ferries me down into the underworld to see where the Federation mining team have intercepted the historic and iconic Birthday Reef.
It was an exciting moment, yeah, seeing rock that nobody's essentially seen for 70 years and putting those historic pictures and seeing the same vein in front of you was really cool, yeah.
The Birthday Reef was discovered in 1905, on the King's birthday. The Blackwater mine operated from 1908 through to 1951, when a shaft collapse caused the owners to abandon the mine.
Blackwater mine mined about 700,000 ounces historically, and we've come in beneath that old historic working, and now we're drilling it out and mining along the ore body.
Much of the work Federation Mining is doing now is to quantify the amount of gold in this reef, which they believe holds about 700,000 ounces.
So it's 900 metres long, about roughly 0.7 wide. It gets fatter and thinner. As you can see here, it's probably more than a metre, but it can thin out and it can get thicker. Drilling from surface and defining something to go and make a mine is difficult. You don't know where it is and you've got to find it. We obviously know where it is, but we now have to quantify it and keep quantifying it.
And so far so good.
This is from a face sample we got a couple of swings ago, but a good bit of gold in there.
Chris began his mining career above ground, and I wondered what it's like adapting to life down here in the dark depths.
A bit daunting to go underground at first and change from being on surface. Not that I'm claustrophobic, but there's no lights on the side. It's your cap lamp, it's your light. We took some people down earlier this year, and my partner said once you go 50 metres underground, it's all the same. I'd say you get used to it pretty quick.
As Chris and I were talking, a bogger turned up to take some rock away from the face. Boggers are a specialised loader with a shape and size tailored to underground work. Unlike most loaders, the operator sits side on.
How does it go getting used to driving it, like sitting sideways?
When you first jump in, it's a bit how you're going, but you soon work it out pretty fast by hitting the wall. So you pretty much you get a feel for it. But it is a bit of a twist sitting sideways, but once you get your head around it, it's pretty good.
Adam seemed to be thriving down here.
That's good, It's peaceful, left alone. No service down here, nothing like that. So 7 and 7 roster, so yeah, 7 days, 7 nights.
And, how long have you been working here for?
It'd be about a year. So moved up pretty fast, just had a bit of a crack and went hard and got to where I am.
And what were you doing before that?
I was just truck driving, yeah. Wasn't really for me, that's sure. Sitting there 12 hours a day, staring at the road. This full crackers, you come down here, she's all go.
And because it's all go, Adam did have to go. We took the chance to explore further through the labyrinth and found yet another drilling team hard at work. Each run of core harvested adds to the body of knowledge on a resource, and there's always more drilling to be done.
If we're drilling and they're getting some really good core, they're getting some good ore, good quartz, good gold, naturally they want to probe and see what more could lie there.
I asked Ben how this drill site compares to the operations Rua Gold are running up on the surface.
A lot different, just the rigs in general. I mean, you can hear that noise in the background. That's an electric power pack due to, emissions. We don't want to be running diesel engines underground if we don't have to. I guess the same fundamentals apply with how we retrieve and drill the core.
It turns out Ben started his working life across the ditch as a diesel mechanic before shifting to mining.
Opal mining, not gold mining as such, out in Lightning Ridge.
The going story seems to be New Zealanders going over to Australia to work in mining over there. You're sort of going the other way. How'd that happen?
I made my money in the outback, got sick of dodging snakes and crocodiles, thought I'd come over here, met my wife, got married, baby, now got baby number 2 on the way. I'm pretty well settled down in the relaxed coastal lifestyle. Yeah, I haven't looked back.
While the drill rigs get all the glory up on top, there's another beast to contend with down here. And further up the tunnel, we found one. This is what's called a jumbo. It's sort of like a giant mechanical crab, with 2 arms perfect for drilling holes and installing mesh in the newly cut drives. The man at the controls on this one, Ethan, talked us through the ins and outs of what these machines can do.
Got rotation, percussion, feed, so your feed is basically your steel, the drift and move the steel in and out. There's multiple different movements that the boom can do to get you into all sorts of different positions that you need to.
So how long have you been operating jumbos for?
On and off for just under a year. Still definitely a lot for me to learn.
It's no secret that jumbo operators are among the highest paid staff in underground mines, and that's because they've got a lot going on.
Not just about operating, it's about boring to make sure you're following boring instructions, and you want to be keeping the mine on profile and on design. So I guess there's more pressure than sort of sitting in a truck or a bogger, I guess, yeah.
Nobody just walks into a mine and gets a jumbo gig in their first day on the job. Ethan spent 6 years in Australia learning his trade.
I started out as a nipper, jumbo offsider. If you're starting green, you've got to work your way up and just, have a go, bust your ass, got to have a crack.
Having a crack beside him here at Snowy River is jumbo offsider, or nipper, Morris.
So basically, I'll be sort of racing around in the background, get everything all set up.
You look like you're just supplying him ammunition, just feeding the magazine,
pretty much, yeah. So he'll just swing his boom around whenever he's ready, and I'll just keep him going, basically. Just keep it smooth, keep it fast.
Morris was working in a hunting and fishing store in his hometown of Kaikoura when he just happened to talk to a guy who was working here at Snowy River.
You don't hear about it too much, like the mining industry, especially underground, and so it just really intrigued me, and sort of wanted to come and have a go, really, and I'm loving it. When I started, I was doing this for the first 6 months, progressed through and sort of come back doing this to sort of get a bit more exposure around the jumbo and with the goal of getting onto it one day.
So that's the dream?
Yeah, it would be, yep, that's where it's at. So it opens up a whole new world, obviously, with overseas and all that sort of thing. So
I left Morris and Ethan to it and made my way back to the surface. As my eyes adjusted to daylight, I just had time to get a final word from Snowy River mine manager, Patrick, on what's to come here as they work towards gold production.
Some more equipment, more loaders, more trucks, more underground drills, and more people. And we'll see workforce climbing towards sort of 200s to get into production.
Like any gold miner, Patrick has his sights clearly set on that long-pursued, long-awaited target.
Sort of over the next 2 years, we expect to develop into full production and develop a mill and develop the other infrastructure on site to start developing those gold bars.
I look forward to seeing more people going into Snowy River and some of those gold bars coming out. But for now, it was time to head off to see what happens when the focus shifts from opening a mine up to closing one down. My final site to visit in the Reefton Goldfields today is Oceana Gold's Globe Progress mine. After breaking ground in 2005, gold production began in 2007. This was once one of New Zealand's major hard rock gold mines, yielding 610,000 ounces of gold by the time production ended in February 2016. Since then, Oceana Gold's rehabilitation teams have worked to transform the site and consulted with locals on what they want up here, including what remnants of the operation should remain.
And that was the switch room, foundation, and then above that was the control room.
Jeff was an electrician here in the early days and remembers what it was like when the pits and processing plant were in full swing, employing more than 200 people in different parts of the mine.
Ball mill was pretty noisy when it was running, and if it wasn't running, it normally meant we had a breakdown, and so there was a hive of activity. And 24/7, Christmas Day, whatever.
After almost a decade milling gold from quartz, the processing plant was one of the first things to go when mining stopped.
I think they had it down in about a month. So yeah, that was 2 guys on diggers with bunches and just bunched it up with scrap steel.
One of the earliest people to arrive at this mine, Jeff's now one of the last to leave. I asked him what it's been like closing up shop.
The strangest day was the day that was just dead quiet up here. To come up here, no noise and no one running around, it was just like, whoa.
One of the biggest woes up here is the sheer number of native trees that have been planted across the 260 hectare footprint of the mine. It hasn't just been a matter of throwing out seedlings and hoping for the best. Steph, who oversaw much of the rehab, took me to a recently planted slope to talk me through the process.
We did progressive rehab here, so we started planting trees as early as 2007, and up to date we've done just over 1 million trees in total, which is pretty cool. We focus on 4 species, so that's Manuka and 3 beech, so silver beech, mountain beech and red beech. In some of the earlier plantings we planted more of a wide variety, but we've found that through monitoring that these 4 are the best at that successful process and growing up fast, creating canopy closure and allowing all of the other species to come in underneath.
The slope we're standing on looks like a natural contour, but it was once a stripped back, benched pit wall.
And so the first step of rehab is to recontour those down to look as natural as possible, try and take out some of that bench lock, smooth that out. After we've recontoured, we place 500 mils of weathered rock that we stripped and stored somewhere. And then on top of that is about 200 mils of topsoil and all the forest stuff and logs and all sorts of other things. The logs are actually super important. They stop erosion, they stop any water sheeting off creating scours, and they create these microclimate sites where you have these areas that are more sheltered, even a lot of seed and things are still part of these logs, and you'll have ferns and all sorts of different species come up under those.
Further up the slope, we found some more mature trees.
So these trees were planted in 2013 when I very first started. So they are, getting close to 13 years old, 12, 13 years old. You can see that they've already reached canopy closure, getting that nice dense bush forming. You can see that all that grass has now died out and you've just got like sort of more moss and something more natural that you would see in an actual forest. If you think about it, this is only 12 years old and it's already looking like a forest. When you walk through now, there's bird life, insect life, it's pretty cool.
Steph started working at Globe Progress as part of her master's thesis, developing this vertical flow reactor that treats mine water. Managing water quality is a big focus on mine sites, one that continues into the rehab phase and through to mine closure. Megan has been part of the team of staff and contractors who helped develop this wetland to deal with sediment loads.
Just behind me we have Fossickers Lake, which was the tailing storage facility. So that was where all the sort of water from the processing plant was pumped to this area. During operations it was very like milk coloured and yeah, high sediment, and then we've done some partial capping and planting, which you can see all around me, and the actual water itself has cleared up and is now able to be discharged without any treatment.
Probably the most striking water feature here is the Globe Progress pit lake. Megan took me up to the newly constructed lookout to give an idea of what the future holds, including passing the management of the site back to the Department of Conservation.
Oceana Gold and Globe Progress Mine was a big part of the community, so we do have invested community members and what they envision to be left on site and the sort of access. So we are working through that process currently with Department of Conservation as well. When we decided to do a bit of a project, a visitor experience project to leave this place for the community, we did do consultation, and there was feedback forms and meetings and things that we held to try and incorporate comments. And one of those was having a track that linked Reefton Township to site, having like interpretation and things and lookout points so you can actually see. We're not trying to hide that we're mining, but this is what we're leaving in place.
There's certainly no hiding from a long heritage of mining here in Reefton. As recent mines close, new ones open. Thanks to all the explorers, miners and rehabbers from Rua Gold, Federation Mining and Oceana Gold for giving us a glimmer of life in the Reefton Goldfield. We look forward to seeing you next time as we continue to meet the miners.